Hello, all. Welcome to this session where we talk about preparing ethics document. This is a step in the proposal preparation process. So, all STS proposals need to pass through the College Ethics Committee, and even those proposals which involve use of secondary data and the proposals where the student is not expected to collect data afresh from the study participants, even they need to be passed through ethics committee. You will find the details of your ethics committee and the procedures required to process your proposal through ethics committee by talking to your guide. Probably the details might be available on college website as well. And the easiest task might be to talk to your senior students who might have done STS project or other student research projects. So this is how the ethics committee process might look like. Uh, The steps are: first, you submit a proposal, research proposal to the ethics committee, and the ethics committee would ask certain documents. The first one is each college ethics committee would have an application form, which would mainly ask you the title, the list of the investigators, the amount of risk the project involves, and so on, and maybe a little bit of undertaking. It will ask you to submit the scientific protocol. This protocol is the same that you submit to STS. It will ask you certain annexures also in the form of the case record form of study questionnaires that we talked about in the previous session. And it will ask you to supply consent forms. Now, consent form has two components. One is participant information sheet, and second one is informed consent form. So these are the two documents that they'll ask. We are going to look at what are the contents of these two documents in details in this session. So once you submit all those documents, the ethics committee will internally review the documents that you have submitted, and they might ask you to present during a meeting of the ethics committee members to present your proposal on a usually on a PowerPoint format. Once that is done, and if everything is okay, you might receive your approval letter. So the next question is, say for example, is it necessary to submit the approval letter by 30th of May, which is the last date to submit STS protocols this year? No, it is usually not required. So instead, what we can submit is an undertaking by the student and guide to the effect that they will be processing the protocol through ethics committee, and data collection would start only after obtaining approval from the institutional ethics committee. So one pager approval is good enough, containing signature of the student and guide. A sample copy of an editable copy of such an undertaking is available in Google Classroom under step 3 under the topic step. Uh, so let us look at a little bit of conceptual understanding of what are the principles of ethics around human research, and whatever documents that we require to be submitting would be based on these principles. So, over the next three slides, I'll be summarizing the three principles of ethics, which are autonomy, beneficence, and justice. So, I'll start with autonomy. What's autonomy? Autonomy says that each human being, each person should be given respect, and they should be given time and opportunity to make their own decisions. So, when the person decides to participate in research study, even if the research study is simple, like giving a response to a survey questionnaire, even for that, everyone should be given a choice. It should not be a forceful participation. This becomes particularly important when we are dealing with vulnerable populations, such as children, elderly, mentally ill people, students, or prisoners. We identify vulnerable populations where we feel that their autonomy is reduced. So their power to take independent decisions is reduced because they might be dependent on others. Right. So these are the population subgroups which need to be specifically protected, and hence we need to take special care when we are dealing with them. So say, for example, when your study participants are anybody who is under 18 years of an age, you usually, from 14 to 18 years of an age, you usually take the assent from them. And at the same time, you take the consent from parents. So both are necessary. The parents be given information as to what's the study all about, and the child also giving an assent. So that's the first principle. And how do we make sure implementation of this principle in our research is through preparing a document which is called as participant information sheet, which provides everything in detail about our research study, and the informed consent form. The next principle is beneficence. Here we say that the benefit should outweigh the risks. So whatever be the small research project, there would always be some benefits and some risks. So the risk here we have defined in terms of the increasing amount of risk. So less than minimal risk is something where an anonymous data is used or secondary data is used, where we are not approaching the participant, but we are just making use of their data. Minimal risk is, say, for example, taking history from people, or, say, for example, the surveys that we do, or doing physical examination, asking the study participant to undergo a chest X-ray, or collecting sputum or urine collection, which are non-invasive procedures. Low risk would be a little more than the minimal risk, where, say, for example, if we are taking blood samples, so sometimes if a study is on vitamin B12 and its effects, and if to measure the level of vitamin B12, you are drawing blood samples from the research participants, it would be low risk. The risk would be a little more than minimal risk. Or the risk would be high, for example, with regard to drug trials, when the new drugs are experimented, we never know what are the other side effects that we can encounter. Or detailed procedure, invasive procedures such as lumbar puncture or lung or liver biopsy. So when we submit our proposal to ethics committee, we should be able to convey to the ethics committee that for our research participants, the potential benefits of the study are outweighing the risks. So if we are subjecting our participants to lumbar puncture, obviously the benefits would be that an important clinical information would be obtained, which would probably benefit the people suffering from that disease. Right? So we balance the risks and the benefits. The next is the principle of justice, where we say that this principle says that the principle of fair selection, where we say that the burden and benefits are shared fairly. So it should not happen that since the enrolling participants from, let's say, poor socioeconomic background are easier, so we only enroll participants from poor socioeconomic background, and they might sustain burdens of conducting the research, whereas the benefits of research are enjoyed by everyone. So, say, for example, if there is a drug trial for treatment of a chronic disease where the treatment is required lifelong, and if the uh, uh, researchers only provide medications during the research process only, probably it would not be fair to the participants. So the participant should have access to those new medications if they are proven to be effective uh, uh, after the study is over as well. Right? So, and then there will be beneficial benefits to individual participants and groups as well. So, for example, even if you are doing a simple study such as the ability of school students on reading nutritional label on packaged food, the risk that the student carries is the time that the student gives you. And what benefit can the research team give to them would be at the end of the data collection process, if the research team gives them some kind of health awareness about how to read the nutrition label, and health awareness on nutrition in general, probably that would be something that the benefits are shared with participants, the research participants themselves. When the research findings are out, probably when they are shared with the stakeholder groups, probably the larger benefit, apart from the study participants, other school students might also benefit as different stakeholders start utilizing the findings of the research. Right. So that's the principle of justice. Now, uh, who decides as to the principles of ethics are met in this particular research? So, Whenever any research team is undertaking any research on human participants, the researchers themselves cannot take a decision as to what's the risk stratification in their own research, or that the all of the ethical principles are adhered to. So a third party needs to do this. So usually a peer review needs to happen, and hence the usual mechanism, the regulatory mechanism, is that each medical college is expected to be having an institutional ethics committee. The ethics committee is independent of the medical college. So this ethics committee reviews our protocol and gives approval when it's satisfied that all the principles of human research, all the ethical principles are met. So every proposal needs to pass through the committee, and we will not, the research team themselves will not declare, but the ethics committee would declare. And that declaration would be in the form of an approval letter that we will need to, once you process that to the ethics committee before your data collection of STS project, when it's time to submit the intermediate progress report, at that time you might submit the ethics committee approval, or for sure at the time of final report submission, ICMR will ask you to submit the ethics approval letter. Without that, your second installment of ICMR STS stipend would not be released. Now the next question is, what do we write in the actual proposal about ethics? We understand that ethics is something which comes as part of the methodology section, right? So something would go into the text in the form of a paragraph in the methodology section, and something would go in the annexures as well. So what we can possibly write in the text is a commitment that we will process. If we have not already processed, many students start preparing for STS proposals a little late, and hence it might not be feasible for them to get the ethics committee approval before 30th May. So if that's the case, you will write a commitment that you will process the protocol through ethics committee before you start the data collection. You might also add a sentence saying that the study will follow all the principles of ethics as given by the guidelines on ethics for human research by ICMR. You can cite those guidelines as well in the reference. You can mention that in written informed consent, not only consent, an informed consent that too in the written form will be taken from participants before data collection. And there are two words here, privacy and confidentiality. So privacy is something when you are collecting the data, you ensure privacy. So privacy has an element of a visual privacy and auditory privacy. So privacy would be ensured during data collection process. And once you collect your data, which might be on a printed case record form, or it might be on an electronic data capture tool. So wherever it is, either on a paper or electronic form, you will maintain confidentiality. Whatever information that you collect from your study participant, you will not share it with any third party. It will stay with the research team only. That's what we mean by confidentiality. The annexures are two, so that's what the what goes probably four sentences around a paragraph of four sentences, which about the ethics committee. If you have already received ethics committee approval, probably it would be better to mention the approval letter number as well without revealing the name of the college. The two annexures that we are expected to be submitting at the protocol writing stage itself. Although the text you are saying that you will get the approval later, but the participant information sheet and the informed consent form, both of them you have to prepare, you have to develop it before ICMR STS proposal submission before 30th of May, and you are expected to be submitting them as annexures on the DHR portal. So let us look at what are the contents. So participant information sheet essentially is a document which is given to participants in the language that the participant understands. So usually it is in two versions. One version is in English, the other version is a vernacular local version. So whatever is the local language spoken by your research participants, you also have to prepare a participant information sheet in that language and provide a printed copy of the participant information sheet to your study participant. So it will have all these information, your study title, aim of the study, why the study participant was approached, you clarify the selection criteria to them. You tell them what is the procedure. Now, this is the procedure from the point of view of participants as to what is going to happen to them. Are you going to go to them and ask, deliver certain survey instruments, or do physical examination, or just observe, or let's say subject them to some laboratory investigations? And that's the case, whether it is invasive, how much amount of time will it take, and when would the participants receive the results and the interpretation of the results? What's the duration of participation expected? Whether are you going to meet them only once, or are you expected to whether the participants also expect you to give you some information in follow-ups? What are the anticipated benefits and what are the potential hazards? Two clarifications: that the participation is completely voluntary in nature, and the study participant has all the rights to withdraw at any point in time. And availability of medical treatment or refusal to participate. So this usually applies more with clinical trials, where even if the study participants midway refuses to participate, they have access. Their routine medical care would not be affected. Then confidentiality of collected data that you ensure, and compensation, if any. So the kind of compensation would usually be involved in case of clinical trials. So since they are not allowed under STS, so that would not be the case. But you might clarify about the costs and contact details of the study investigator, which means the student and the guide and member secretary of institutional ethics committee. So this is what the participant information sheet in principle, conceptually, is expected to be containing. Now we'll look at a sample participant information sheet and understand that for a particular sample research study, what all sentences can potentially go there. Okay. So this is a screenshot of a Word document where we are sharing over the next 4 or 5 slides these screenshots of a sample participant information sheet for a sample study. So the study title is Can College Students Correctly Interpret Nutrition Label on Processed Foods, a cross-sectional study. And then the participant information sheet gives name of the student, name of the guide, and the institute as well. When you are submitting a version of the participant information sheet as one of the annexes to be uploaded on DHR portal, ensure that you remove the name of the student, guide, and the institute as well. Then you can mention a paragraph on what is the purpose of this study. So the sentence goes here: healthy eating is essential for preventing long-term illnesses like heart disease or diabetes. So you understand that this is not necessarily scientific terms, since this is expected to be consumed by your research participant, who is more likely to be a layperson when it comes to the science of medicine, right? So it's not in scientific language. So what we are writing here is this is science writing rather than scientific writing. So the terminology that you use while you are writing your study protocol, this terminology in participant information sheet is expected to be more simpler. Right? Today, many people consume processed foods which carry nutrition label. We want to understand if college students can correctly read and interpret these labels to make healthier choices. So you don't need to be very lengthy. Let's say 2 or 3 sentences about the purpose of the study would suffice. That too in simple language. Uh, and when you are doing that, please ensure that you take care of the level of learners, so level of your study participants. So if your study participants are school students, keep the English language at a level where the school students can understand the information. Why have I been invited to participate? So the answer is that you are being invited because you are a college student, and the study is among college students. Since you have completed your basic schooling and you can make independent food choices, you are the right person to help us understand the awareness levels of young adults regarding nutrition. The next question is, what will I be asked to do? So these are the participants are asking you the questions. So you, in a sense, are in this sheet. You are providing answers to the potential questions that the participants might have about your research. So we say that what will I be asked to do if you agree to take part. So you are once again clarifying that for the voluntary nature of participation. So we are saying that if you agree to take part, you will be asked to complete a basic form, which the basic details, answer a questionnaire containing approximately 20 multiple choice questions designed to test how do you interpret nutritional information on food packets, right? We are supplying information as to what are the possible potential number of questions, and in the next point you are also going to explain them as to what on average what amount of time is expected by the study participants to fill up this form. You will gather this information while you have done the pilot study. After the survey, a short health education talk for about 5 minutes will be provided to help you better understand nutrition and its linkage, right? So this is, you are telling the participant as to what is the participant expected to do when they participate. Since this is a cross-sectional study, you are meeting with participants only once, but if it involves follow-up, you might say that at the first instance, when you meet their investigators, this is what is going to happen. We are going to come back to you, let's say, in person or telephonically after 3 months, and going to ask you certain questions which would be pertaining to 1, 2, and 3 themes or something like that. The next question is, will there be any benefits to the participants? So we are saying that you will gain critical knowledge on how to select the right food packets by looking at their contents. You will also receive health education as part of the study. Research participants would have better understanding about reading nutrition labels. Are there any risks? So we are talking about benefits and risks. So we say that in general there are no risks. There are no physical risks or harms involved in participating in this survey. So the participant contributes their time. And then we explain the voluntary nature of the study uh, by saying that is participation voluntary? Yes, your participation is entirely voluntary, and you can also mentioning the right to withdraw. So you can choose to skip any question during while you are filling up the form, or stop participating at any time without giving any reason. Right? And patients, a routine access to healthcare services would not be affected if we are meeting a participant at a health facility, if we are taking study sample from the health facility. Because their primary concern would be taking healthcare services, right? The next is, will my information be kept confidential? So understand this from the research participant's point of view. If you yourself were to be any research participant, you would usually want your information to be kept confidential, and hence your research participant also would expect the same from you. So yes, all your personal details will be kept strictly confidential. We will only use aggregated data, which is summary results. We talked about this in last session where we talked about data analysis plans and dummy tables. So the dummy tables used to provide only summary and not results or information on each of those study participants. Your individual identity will not be revealed in any research reports or publications. Are there any costs involved? So no, neither you nor your institution will have to pay any cost for participating in this study. Who can I contact if I have any further questions? So if you have any questions later, you may contact the study investigators, which is the student and guide, and member secretary to institutional ethics committee. So you have to provide the name and contact details. So this is a sample participant information sheet. So depending on your actual study protocol and the topic, you can utilize this kind of sentences to create a participant information sheet for your project. Usually the participant information sheet goes into, let's say, a little more than 1 page, 1.5 page. And your ICMR STS expects the line spacing to be somewhere around single line spacing, 12 font size, and times New Roman. So apart from this, the second document is informed consent form. So you are giving one hard copy of participant information sheet to your research participants. You are also giving them a copy of the informed consent form. Another copy of the informed consent form you will keep with yourself. So informed consent form will also be in 2 copies, right? And both of those copies will have signature of the name signature of the participants and the researcher as well. So informed consent form is just a signed document. So this we say that this is how when we do we say that the consent is written informed consent. So your participant information sheet ensures that you have informed sufficiently to your study participant about the nature and purpose of your research study. And when we say it's a written consent is when we have a copy of informed consent form where the participant has given their signature or put up a thumb impression. So we give a study title and summarize in short. The statement from the participants is that I confirm that I have read the participant information sheet and have understood the information provided, that I were given an opportunity to ask questions and clarify my doubts. I understand that the participation is voluntary and I am free to withdraw at any point in time. And I understand that my identity will be kept confidential and it can be used only for research purposes. And finally, the study participant says that I agree to take part in this study. So this is the informed consent form. So in your STS proposal, within the single document, probably you can, in a Word document, your participant information sheet might go to 2 pages. In the third page would be informed consent form. This you create on a Microsoft Word document and convert into a PDF. In that PDF, you will have to upload in the relevant sections when you are uploading annexures for your STS proposals. One of the annexures would be the consent forms. So even if the title might say consent forms, you ensure that your file contains both participant information sheet as well as the informed consent. So this is what we wanted to share with regard to how do you prepare your documents around the uh, ethics requirements for research proposals for your STS project. Thank you.